So now I'm going to show you how to make a pot roast. There are cuts of pork and cuts of lamb you can use to make one, but we're going to use a cut of beef today, and this is brisket. For this recipe, you're going to need about 1.25 kilos of brisket, which equates to 2.5 pounds. You will also need 2 red onions, quartered, 4 sticks of celery chopped, 6 to 8 baby carrots, and 2 bay leaves. We then need to make a stock for the pot roast. To make that, we'll add 450 ml, which is 3/4 of a pint of meat stock, and 150 ml of dark ale, which equates to about 1/4 of a pint. The first stage of this recipe is to brown the beef in a pan, and we'll use a little bit of olive oil to do that. It's important to note that we need to use a heavy lidded casserole dish to make this recipe, or something with a tight lid. When pot roasting meat, what you need to do first of all is seal the outer edge of the joint you're using. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on this pan here. I'm going to heat a heavy base frying pan. While that's warming up, you need to preheat your oven to 170 degrees Celsius or gas mark 3. If you have a fan assisted oven, you might want to reduce that to about 150 degrees C. To the pan, I'm going to add a tablespoon of olive oil. You can use any other oil for this. You can use vegetable oil, groundnut oil, or sunflower oil. The trick though is to make sure the oil is really hot before you add the meat to the pan. This is actually a very simple way of cooking, because once you've sealed it, you can put your joint of meat into your casserole dish, add in all the rest of your ingredients, and basically forget about it for 2 hours. It's hot enough. It's just hot enough there. If your pan isn't hot enough, the meat won't brown so readily and can tend to stew a little bit. So what you want is the pan to be hot, and you want to turn the meat so it browns evenly. As you can see, the meat is beginning to brown there. I'm turning it on its end so that we seal this as well. This can be a little bit of a labour-intensive process at the beginning, but once that's done, everything else is really easy. Keep turning the meat till it's browned on all sides, top and the bottom, and looks like that. Then turn off the gas. You can then get your casserole dish, remove the lid, and simply transfer your joint of meat into the casserole. All you then have to do is arrange your vegetables in there. So we've got our red onion, which have been peeled and quartered. Move this. And then we have our celery, which has been chopped, and our baby carrots, which have just been peeled and left whole. Now you can arrange it very, very prettily, very artistically, or you can actually just throw in all the vegetables. And it's also important to mention there were 2 bay leaves in there as well. Once you've done that, you can add in your beer and add in your stock. And that's really all there is to it. Put the lid back on, make sure it fits tightly, and transfer to the oven to cook for 2 hours, maybe 2.5 hours if it's not entirely done. So our pot roast has been in the oven for about 2 hours at 170 degrees Celsius, gas mark 3. Here we go. Take the lid off, and as you can see, the meat is cooked and the beer and all the vegetables have become a lovely gravy to serve the beef with. What we need to do now, though, is before carving the beef and serving it, we need to let it rest. And it's imperative to let meat rest before you carve it. It allows the meat to relax, and it makes it much easier to carve and much better to eat. So let me remove that from there and set aside on a plate. We can cover it with foil to keep it warm, and we'll put the lid back on the gravy to keep that warm, because we'll use that to serve with the meat. So now we're going to carve and serve our pot roast. It's been rested, so it should be easier to carve. I'm going to move it from this plate onto the chopping board. And I'm using a chef's knife here, but you can use a serrated knife if you want to. There's no hard and fast rules on what you use. If you find it really difficult and are a bit scared of carving, you can always cut your joint lengthways down the middle. It gives you a flat surface to work on, and the only difference is that your slices will be half circle shaped. First of all here, though, I'm going to take off one of the strings. Be a little tricky, and I'm just going to use my hands to remove that. It just stops it springing back when I carve. So here, I'm just going to gently carve through the pot roast. But anyway, there we have. We can cut a few more slices, but we have one really nice slice there, which we're going to serve with some new potatoes, which have been dressed in butter and chives, and some mash of carrot and swede, which I prepared earlier. And there it is. So what we'll do is move the slice of meat from the board, if I can lift it, onto the plate. And we're going to use some of the juices that we reserved from earlier that we cooked the meat in. As we said before, it's formed a lovely gravy, and it's been kept warm. And I'll use that to dress the meat and dress the table at the same time. And there we have beef and ale pot roast.